I know this is extremely controversial. Should Canada be a part of NATO? Is NATO good or is NATO bad? I don't really have those answers because my entire life I've been under the impression, I've been raised by a system, yeah, I was even in the military, where NATO is good. Having an alliance, a military alliance with a bunch of other large countries around the world is probably not a bad thing. But Canada keeps failing at meeting the bare minimum requirement. And so now it's not a question of is NATO good or is NATO bad? It's more of a question from NATO, is Canada even worth it? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. Justin Trudeau has gone on his magic carpet and gone all the way, far, far away to this NATO summit. Or if it wasn't his magic carpet, it was a sailboat with absolutely no motor attached, because why would he contribute to carbon emissions and climate change when he's preaching we need to fight for climate change, right? Right? No, that's actually not true. He got on a massive plane, put out more emissions in his one trip than we do in an entire month combined. But hey, fight climate change. That's the Canadian way. So Canada is at a very big crossroads where it's kind of not looking good in terms of our relationship with NATO. We keep failing to meet the bare minimum requirement to contribute to the defense budget, 2% of Canada's GDP. Now, Justin Trudeau has fallen short. It's been 1.5 or 1.25%, and he announced that it would potentially be 1.75%, but Canada is picking up the slack elsewhere. We're fighting climate change. Our little biodome here in Canada, right, that only contributes 1.5% or 0.5% of global emissions in the entire world, but we're going to take on the cost for everyone's pollution because Canada, that is the way, apparently. And so because we're fighting climate change for everybody around the world, we don't have to spend as much for our defense budget, according to Justin Trudeau. And well, that bodes over as well as you think it would with, I don't know, everybody else in NATO who's like, that's not exactly how it works. But you don't have to take my word for it. Let's look at the clips together because it's really not looking good for Trudeau, and Canada could potentially be removed, kicked out from NATO sooner than later, which, yeah, I don't know, man. If anyone were to do that to Canada, it would be Justin Trudeau. But let's start off with the polls, as we always do. 213 projected seats for the Conservative Party of Canada. Bottom line, 179. Top end, 234. Still looking good there. 72 for the Liberals. 99% across the board for winning the most seats and for a majority government. So no changes since the last time we looked, which, hey, that's probably for the best, but wait a few days or a week until the opinion polls update from this NATO summit disaster, catastrophe. I don't even know what to call it, but we're going to look at a couple smaller stories before we get into the NATO stuff, such as just this small little media outlet, BBC News, not Canada, not America, but the world. BBC News World official X account has said that how Canada became a car theft capital of the world. So at least Canada is known for multiple different things. Hockey, yeah, like maybe not like we used to, but still, sure, hockey. Maple syrup, yeah. I mean, we're the leaders in that. I think Quebec, it's on its own, produces like 70% of the entire world's maple syrup. And then that's it. And then there's car theft, there's increased cost of living, and there's how much we pay to fix pollution. So we're known for quite a few things now. Not all good things, though. Yeah, not all good things. Next up, we have Melissa Lantsman, who, as you're likely aware, is a opposition MP, and she's making fun of Chrystia Freeland press conference here. The minister who recommended the appointment didn't do their job. The Prime Minister's office didn't do their job. The entire cabinet who approved this appointment didn't do their jobs. They denied it. Now they blame everyone else, and no one faces consequences because we all need to do better. Also, Justin Trudeau needs to fire this guy. Let's take a look at this clip.
Hello, Deputy Prime Minister. My name is Ali Alwal. I'm with CBC News. The Privy Council said it made a mistake vetting the appointment of Canada's new human rights chief. Key information was not vetted nor sent to the RCMP or CSIS. What do you make of this, especially after the Prime Minister said in 2021 he was looking to improve the vetting process for high-level appointments after what happened at Rideau Hall. Did anything change?
As the Minister of Justice has said, that's unacceptable, and we need to do better, and Privy Council needs to do better.
That's her answer for everything, is we need to do better. You know, instead of that, which, by the way, you've had 9 years to try and do better, you've done worse. You've made it worse. I know Chrystia Freeland has been part of the World Economic Forum for a very long time, and she's had her ties in Klaus Schwab and other parts of the world and these massive globalist organizations, but she wasn't this massive figurehead for failure 9 or 10 years ago like she is today. So congratulations on your reputation going south. Yeah, you've done that to yourself. So instead of Pierre Poilievre going around, you know, emitting emissions and polluting the world like Justin Trudeau is doing, he is here in Canada talking to Canadians. Thanks to the great workers who make materials to build the homes. We have homes and workplaces. Canada needs Garibaldi glass. My government will be like their products, transparent, which is a phenomenal message. And so far to date, there hasn't really been any reason to believe that Pierre Poilievre, or the Conservatives for that matter, would be anything but transparent. And then we take a look at Justin Trudeau, who is literally the opposite. I mean, he is just an absolute idiot. So this is a hilarious photo. Justin Trudeau lands for the NATO summit, and he gets off his plane and he's waving. Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. How's it going? That's his plane. I mean, who's he waving to? 3 people down there? Look, I don't know about you, but I've waved at people. I don't do that. I don't wave like that at 3 people. I mean, that's very bizarre. So obviously it's for a photo op, and it's just really hilarious to show that, dude, you like, who are you trying to fool? Do you think the world's a bunch of idiots? This doesn't help your reputation. Just get off the plane. Why make a dramatic, hey, everybody, how's it going, when there's nobody there? It's theater, which is obviously Justin Trudeau's biggest qualification, failed drama teacher. So congrats, buddy. You're living up to your real potential. And then, of course, on X, I had my own little 2 cents to say. If you die, it's because you didn't pay enough carbon tax to fight climate change. Justin Trudeau, probably. And that's going to make a lot of sense in a few moments. So speaking of climate change, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party have this to show everybody. What a waste of money. Trudeau's government burns jet fuel so people can fly around and do pointless meetings at the taxpayers' expense. Meanwhile, he wants to quadruple the carbon tax for Canadians. High-flying, high-carbon tax hypocrisy not worth the cost. This comes after an article was published just recently, today, that Canada's climate change ambassador spent more than $250,000 on travel in 2 years. On a trip to Paris, Stewart stayed at a hotel near the Eiffel Tower that went for $428 a night. Because why wouldn't you? When you have access to essentially infinite amounts of money, why wouldn't you stay at the best locations for the biggest amount of money when it's not coming out of your hard-earned work, right? Like, that's not their taxpayers' money. It's not coming out of their paycheck. It's money that they're somehow able to use free of any consequences. And they do a phenomenal job, I suppose, of abusing that system. So if you're ever wondering why Canada is bankrupt, it's because of that. Now, is this singular individual responsible for Canada having absolutely no money? No, not individually, but collectively. When you include that and Jagmeet Singh's over $500,000 business expenditures out of the same taxpayer fund pool, yeah, no, that adds up to millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And we're talking about climate change so much because Justin Trudeau focused on the most important threat of our world right now, of democracy as it stands. The entire world is at stake. Not because of Russia, not because of China, not because America has an incompetent, babbling president, not because of anything other than climate change. The weather is the biggest threat to Justin Trudeau, and he made sure that he used that rhetoric at the NATO summit platform, because why not, buddy? Why not just leave your term as a prime minister with the biggest, most gigantic fuck you to everybody? Why not? You just really are a piece of crap. Piece of garbage, totally. So here is Justin Trudeau, who delivers a climate address at the NATO summit in Washington. Let's take a look.
When we took office, Canada was spending less than 1% of its GDP on defense every year. But we vowed to change that right away. And we followed through on our word. We're investing more in our troops, in our capacity, and in our capabilities, all while continuing to provide assistance to our allies resisting Russian aggression. NATO is the strongest military alliance in the world. And to keep it that way, we must continue to step up individually and collectively to strengthen both our alliance and the collective peace it represents and protects. Canada stands with our NATO allies. Canada will always defend the values of democracy, freedom, and the rule of law, as it is more important today than it ever has been. My friends, we must be clear-eyed about the current state of global affairs. The long peace after the Second World War is over. We're living in an increasingly dangerous, unstable, and complex world. Cyber warfare, resurgent authoritarian forces, expanding regional conflicts, and everywhere increasing impacts of climate change, all represent growing threats to our collective security and our continued prosperity. This is the sobering reality we must all face. That's why Canada will continue to work closely with like-minded allies to tackle these challenges directly, to build a better world for all. We will grow our global partnerships, and we will always do what is needed to forge a stronger, more united NATO, and to keep us all safe. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Okay, so this is the very dangerous part about this, is he is essentially giving the middle finger to every single other country that's a part of NATO. And that's not me saying it. That's not my own opinion. It's the professional opinion and the facts. So Ezra Levant shared this. This is how a polite and diplomatic ally criticizes our immature, unserious, dissolute prime minister. So Leader McConnell said, welcomed the Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau to the U.S. Capitol today. Shared values and close economic ties have always been the strength of the U.S. and Canada relationship, but it's time for our northern ally to invest seriously in the hard power required to help preserve prosperity and security across NATO. And that's because Justin Trudeau is saying, look, we're doing our best to contribute to the defense budget. I know you're saying 2% and you want 2% and everybody's meeting that 2%. But Canada is special. Canada is so special that Canada, pollution, fighting climate change. That's pretty much sums everything up for Justin Trudeau. You don't believe me? Let's take a look at this clip here.
Canada and NATO have long recognized an indisputable fact. Climate change is not only an existential environmental threat, but one of the defining security issues of our time. Rising sea levels and increasingly frequent and intense natural disasters threaten security infrastructure like ports and military bases that keep our alliance safe. A warming Arctic is opening up a new arena of competition that our adversaries are eager to exploit, and climate-induced floods, famines, and droughts exacerbate inequality, fuel conflict, and drive displacement across the globe, all of which disproportionately harm marginalized and vulnerable populations. Overall, climate change risks creating a less stable, less prosperous, and less secure world. That is why we acted. Back home, our government has shown global leadership in addressing the climate crisis. We've placed a price on pollution that simultaneously reduces our emissions and puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians.
Oh my God. Why are you doing that? He is using a massive platform to spew this rhetoric. It is absolutely disgusting, which is exactly why other countries are going, yeah, no, it's time to pay up, which, I mean, it reaffirms the question that I asked at the beginning of the video. Is NATO good? Is NATO bad? Let me know down in the comments. But it seems like that question is almost irrelevant now, and it's more about NATO asking themselves. This is the new rhetoric. This is the new language on the block, okay, that everyone's talking about is, should Canada even be a part of NATO? That's coming from inside of NATO. The leadership is going, look, man, Canada keeps failing. Keeps on failing. It's not a good look. So let's take a look at this other video here that reaffirms what I have just said.
Well, NATO leaders are meeting during the 75th anniversary of the military alliance. With more on what they'll be discussing and Canada's particular issues, let's bring in CTV's Colton Prale. Colton, good morning. Thanks for joining us. So what are the big issues NATO will be dealing with this time around?
Yeah, top of mind, of course, is going to be Ukraine and support for them financially as that war continues with Russia. But there are also a lot of questions about the alliance itself, specifically on its future and its ability to be military ready, given the concerns that we've seen from some of the larger member states. Of course, in the U.S., there are big questions around the election and what could a potential Trump presidency mean for NATO. He has previously talked about halting aid to Ukraine, about even pulling out of the alliance itself. How would they go forward? On top of that, recently, in light of that U.S. instability, you've had France positioning itself as a European leader of this group, as someone who can be taking charge and seen to be leading the way. However, the power that Emmanuel Macron has in his own country vastly diminished after this weekend's election. You just saw a huge uproar on the far right and the far left, getting immense amounts of power that they didn't have before. Both of those groups who have pushed back against France's actions and their support for Ukraine and their commitment to NATO as well, the far right specifically calling to leave that group. And so those are two rather large member states who are suddenly in a much more tumultuous situation with their relationship with NATO. You also have countries like Turkey and Hungary involved as well, who are very cozy with Russia and who aren't as committed to helping out Ukraine. So the future of this alliance, ensuring that its member states are paying the amount they ought to be paying and meeting that 2% target, all on the table here as the focus is around Ukraine and around being able to continue to support Ukraine, even if the presidential election in November dramatically changes the landscape of the inner workings of NATO.
Mm-hmm. And Colton, you just mentioned that 2% target for NATO defense spending by NATO member countries. Canada's not there yet. We know that's an issue they're going to be facing. What's coming out of that? What's the Prime Minister either A, experienced or B, in for at this meeting?
And the big concern is that Canada could be pushed to the periphery here. There has been pretty open frustration with the fact that our country has not hit that 2% target. This is something that we've promised to do since 2014. However, this year we saw the unveil of a new military spending plan taking us all the way into 2030. And in that plan, we still don't hit the 2% target. In fact, there was a parliamentary budget officer report that came out yesterday that said actually Canada is going to be even lower than we predict in 2030. Canada's right now at about 1.37% of the GDP on military spending. They say it's going to get up to 1.76 by 2030, but the PBO estimates actually it'll only be about 1.42. Now, they do use a bit of a different formula to get there, and they also assume that, like in years past, Canada's not going to spend as much as they promise, but still, that's a far cry in either scenario from that 2% target, and there is concern that as this goes on, as it stretches on, don't forget a lot of that spending is backloaded closer to the 2030 timeframe, that our allies will grow impatient, that they will get frustrated with the lack of action from government and from Canadian leaders when it comes to this issue, and that as that frustration grows, Canada's place in NATO could be shifted into a much more lower periphery, someone who's on the outside looking in for a number of the discussions that matter.
Yeah.
And there you have it. So it's very much likely that in the foreseeable future, unless something drastically changes, Justin Trudeau is actually going to get Canada an entire country kicked out of the world's largest military alliance. Now, this is why I started off the video with the controversial question. Is NATO even good? Is NATO bad? Personally, I was raised with the ideologies and the beliefs that NATO is very good, that we should trust our government. And like, I mean, obviously I'm being proven wrong right now on the government part, but the NATO part, I might still need a little bit more convincing, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. There's going to be strong opinions of, yeah, of course we need to have that alliance, because if we don't, we could end up like Ukraine. But Ukraine's not a part of NATO, yet NATO is protecting them. So I don't really know. I don't know. I mean, if we did leave NATO, would we still be protected by other countries? That's kind of the golden question. I don't know if I want to find out. I just am here criticizing Justin Trudeau for the mistakes that he has done, that he has continued to do, and likely will continue on. And being kicked out of NATO, or the potential of being kicked out, an entire country being kicked out of NATO, is one hell of a reputation to have as a prime minister. I think that's like the final nail in the coffin for going down as the worst ever prime minister in Canadian history. Like, congratulations, in a time where World War III is potentially being started and influenced by NATO, right? There's that argument to make. We're now potentially getting kicked out of NATO. Good job, Justin. Yay. So I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. That's the end of the video, ladies and gentlemen. On your way out, I would like to encourage you guys to smash like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.